Live. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody is doing well. Sorry for starting a couple minutes late. I'm just recovering from, I had an interview actually, talking about the Arcana Veritas Distinction Awards, which was an absolute blast. But then, I also had an excellent trip last night. Back in Toronto, I got to visit the Windsor Masonic Temple, which was beautiful. I posted a bunch of pics, took a video. I was then got to hang out and do some yoga with some friends, which was fun. I'm always saying Freemasons should be healthy. And then I went to wrestling, watched some wrestling. So that was really fun. Took part in some wrestling. So that was a blast as well. But now I'm back here. Let's give it a few moments. Everybody take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button, give a super chat, and let's wait and see who joins. I was thinking of spending a few minutes. I am up late. Well, I got up late. I was about 10 minutes late. I stayed up very late last night. I got in and to my place at 4 in the morning. And honestly, I probably wasn't even the latest person. It was crazy game last night. I'm not a big baseball fan, but basically, we had an entire wrestling show in Toronto, tore down the ring, or tore down the event, drove from Toronto to Windsor, and then made it back to Windsor, unloaded the truck, all while the baseball game is still going on, which is crazy to think. How's it going, Mr. Keeps? I hope, though, that you are doing well, and thank you for being here. For the boys, indeed. That's incredibly kind of you, Mr. Keeps. Thank you so much for that. That is truly, truly appreciated. How is it going for you, Mr. Keeps? How is your week treating you? No more issues with Amazon Web Services going AWOL? By the way, today's topic, it was going to be about Freemasonry and professional wrestling. Perfect. Okay, so you received, wow, so the first one was really late getting there. Okay, but you got two, so you should be all set. Thank you for letting me know. What did you think of them? Yeah, I like them a lot. Speaking of, probably the War Memorial one, I'm guessing. Oh, so that's the War Memorial, yes. So in Windsor, and actually, this is a really interesting little piece of trivia. We have a memorial for Masonic war dead. If I recall correctly, it's World War One, World War Two, and Korea, if I recall correctly. But anyways, it's actually, and it's really incredible. It's in a park that I understand the park itself, it was owned by the city. I believe it's actually going to be owned by the government pretty soon. So it'll be the one Masonic War Memorial that exists within a national park. So that'll be really, really cool. I'm not sure if that's officially done yet or if they're still in discussions, but I think it's really, really cool. And welcome. If you're just joining us, please take a moment, hit that like and subscribe button. You could be like Mr. Keeps and do a super chat. That would be incredibly kind. Or if not, just hang out today because of what I did yesterday. We're going to be talking about the ways that Freemasonry and professional wrestling are connected. Not directly, except for Masons such as Harley Race, who was also a famous pro wrestler and a Mason, but rather lessons from professional wrestling that can be applied to Freemasonry. Um, I was at a wrestling show. I was reffing. It was a lot of fun. MLP Rena Rumble. So it was a blast. I really enjoyed it. Met a couple Masons while I was there. Went one I hope to get on the podcast very soon. Welcome, Smokey. All right, I got to send you that thing still. Tonight or tomorrow, first thing in the morning, you'll get the link for our live stream on my personal channel. We'll do that together around, if I call correctly, 5 o'clock Eastern is the time we picked. I have no idea what that means, Tundra, but welcome, Tundra. Thank you for being here. I hope that you are doing well. By the way, I'll also mention for Mr. Keeps, and not just Mr. Keeps, but anybody watching this because he mentioned it. If you are interested in getting any specific type of, like if you become a member on the YouTube channel very soon, I'm going to start creating videos and posts and not draws, but poll questions specifically for YouTube members. And you become a member of the channel, you'll see those exclusively. If you want actual physical items, like if you want, for example, commemorative postcards, coins, I have mugs, I have a lot of different merchandise I send out. Some of it is Square and Compass related exclusively, some of it is about my home. Then you need to join Patreon, and depending what level you join, you're eligible to receive all sorts of different items. Everything from correspondence on special postcards through to coins, and it changes kind of year by year, up to scale models of my beautiful Masonic home. So I hope that you will check those out. I don't have any more coins right now. I mean, I could maybe create some special Square and Compass coins. That could be really cool to create. Obviously, I have so many coins. Hold on just one sec. I'll be back, don't worry. Right, I got all these. So I could probably go and talk to some people and see about creating a coin especially for Square and Compass promotions, which would be a lot of fun. Tundra, I mean, so my dad's side of the family is from jolly old England. He came from England, met a Canadian girl, and you know what happens. You meet a Canadian girl, that's the end of it. You move halfway across the ocean for her. And on my mom's side, I forget where they're from. I'm from Transcona, so certainly I grew up hanging out with a lot of Ukrainian people. So, Dad, you got your birthday gift, right? What did you think of the tea? And Smokey, once again, well, you got to be a patron for that, but maybe we can look at sending you something next year. If let's see if our live streams grow a little bit. Maybe we could do something with our other channel and create some coins for either your channel or my channel, our personal channels. Oh, but you're a patron at the sorry, you're a patron at the first level. Having said that, though, I did mail again to you because the last one didn't go through. I guess I haven't received it yet. Your postcard. So at least you're getting a postcard. That's the special. That's the special correspondence you get at level 1. Basically, if I recall correctly, the first level is correspondence, which includes a commemorative postcard. Level 2 is the correspondence and an item. It could be a coin. It was a mug in the past. We've used pens in the past. The third level is a couple items, and then the fourth level is the scale model Masonic Temple. No worries, Smokey. Appreciate that. Oh, there's no secret levels. Mr. Keeps. Clearly, I've taught you nothing. Just trying to send something out quickly. Alrighty. Okay, I will. There you go. You've been secretly studying. But how are things going? I mean, you found an apartment, right? So how is the move going for you? Or getting ready to move? Because it's a pain. Moving is not easy at all. It's actually, I think I read somewhere it's like everybody's least favorite thing, or everybody kind of agrees it's one of their least favorite things. Today, by the way, I did an interview with Brother Roland Price, Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees for Arcana Veritas. He was not on the selection committee, but he's one of the people responsible for the Arcana Veritas Awards, for which I am a finalist in the white paper category. Brother Roland Prince, Prince, not Price, Prince, a past master of Lodge Piece 908, member of the Royal Ark Mariner, Diploma of Distinguished Service Membership from the Grand Lodge of Scotland, holds an honorary rank as Grand Senior Deacon. He also serves as Grand Representative for the Grand Lodge of Lithuania, chaired the Education Committee in the District Grand Lodge of Lebanon, and played a pivotal role in crafting the new corporate identity and logo for the Grand Lodge of Ancient, Free, and Accepted Masons of Scotland. A couple, I'm definitely... Oh, I can imagine, Smokey. And yes, Dad, I got a few bumps and bruises. I mean, I did some stuff, but mostly I'm feeling it in my arms, that's for sure. Especially because that morning before I did the wrestling, I went and did some yoga. And it wasn't like the typical relaxing yoga. It was the stretching, hot, difficult yoga. So I will also say, I think Toronto's trying to grow on me a little bit. I was never a big fan of it. I'm not usually a big fan of, um, not usually a big fan of big cities. However, I think Toronto's growing on me because I enjoyed my visit there yesterday very much. It's funny. There are some videos, but they're hard to find. If I can find, maybe we'll watch it on our live stream together if I can find it. Because it was really, really fun as always, and Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling, as always, puts on an incredible show. Good crowd too. And that was in Icelandic, which is what Harafna speaks. So, Dad, what'd you think of the tea? Did you enjoy it? Did it go well after shuffleboard? And as always, this first hour is just to hang out. Once we get to two, the ways that I think Freemasonry and professional wrestling are connected, or more specifically, the things I think Freemasons can learn from professional wrestling. Oh, yeah, put your phone away, Smokey. Don't let it get rained on. But thank you for being here as always. Well, it rains on the heads of the just and unjust alike, as they say. But get yourself dry, keep out of the rain. And if anybody, I ask this every time I do one of these live streams, if anybody knows of any Masonic lodges or brethren being affected by Um, oh, well, then I got nothing to help you. Just keep your phone safe. By the storms in Jamaica, or the Category 5 hurricane in Jamaica, let me know, especially if you know of any charitable or relief efforts for those Masonic lodges or Masonic lodges engaging in relief efforts. Um, right? Whenever there's a natural disaster, you very often see Masonic lodges, if they can, be at the forefront of helping. That was true in the Los Angeles wildfires. That was true in Texas during the floods. Um, but I also want to know if Masonic buildings or Masons need assistance. That's just as important. And if there's GoFundMe or crowdfunding in either, kind of going either direction. It has maple syrup in the tea. I know it's maple tea, but I didn't know they had maple syrup actually in it. I figured they would just be flavoring. Well, then have it sparingly. Have it sparingly. And did you like the magnet that you got as well? And the, what was it? It was a magnet and it was another set of slippers, also from Dubai. I figured you could use a second set, and I can't use them, so. Ace Time. How's it going? That's a cool name. How's it going, Ace Time? I think you're new to the stream. Thank you for being here. I hope you'll hit the like and subscribe button. And let me know how it's going. As always, please take a moment, hit the like, hit the subscribe button. Actually, maybe I'll just make that the poll question for the time being, because we're going to talk about this soon. Are you a fan? Sorry, of pro wrestling? Start the poll. And welcome. Let me know how you guys are doing. Any thoughts you have on Freemasonry, positive, negative, or neutral? I'd love to hear them. And hit that like and subscribe button. Once we get to 1 hour in, I'm going to start on the main topic, which today is going to be lessons that we as Freemasons can take from professional wrestling. There are more than you might think. It was crazy, Dad. So we started our wrestling show, did the wrestling show, loaded the truck, drove back from Toronto to Windsor, unloaded the truck, and the game was still going on. It literally lasted longer than a 4 hour drive to Toronto, a 3 hour wrestling show, like an hour teardown. It was nuts. I mean, I'm not even a big baseball fan, and I found it like I was really hoping that the Blue Jays would win. So I'm tired. So, yes, you got to sleep late, Dad. You're not a young man anymore. You can't be staying up that late. We're just going to a bit more time. We're going to see who joins. As always, hit the like and subscribe button. Let's give it a few minutes. And then, or 40 minutes, I should say, and then an hour in Freemasonry and professional wrestling. The lessons that the former can learn from the latter. That's a big part of it that Dad brings up. And that's something I didn't even think of, but he's absolutely right. At Freemasonry, you need to have trust of your fellow Masons. Certainly, you need to have trust that your Masons will show up for you when you need them to, especially if you have a ritual or a degree or something where they're expected to attend. I think, and also in today's society where trust is so limited, it would be nice to find us a place where we can have trust once again. I think I mentioned this before, but probably the most famous professional wrestler to be a Freemason is actually Harley Race, and he was always famously known as being a tough son of a gun, and he was. So it's one of those things where he was a Tyler, and he's probably the one Tyler who definitely did not, it was the most secure lodge in the world if you got Harley Race as a Tyler. Well, how's it going, Jake? Welcome back. I hope you're doing well. All right. Well, I will see Jake later. And yeah, if anybody knows of any Masonic Lodge affected by the hurricane in Jamaica, let me know. Let's give it a bit more time. Oh my gosh, who was all the people I wrestled with? A bunch, but Cole Cabana was the biggest name, and he's a great dude. So it was a lot of fun. But it was Maple Leaf Pro Wrestling Arena Rumble. I'm definitely, though, feeling it today, that's for sure. And how did you do in shuffleboard, Dad? Did you win? Did you protect the Adamson name? As I'm giving a bit more time, as always, first hour we just hang out and wait. See who joins and what they want to talk about. And 5 votes. Interesting. A fan of pro wrestling. Yes is at, looks like 2 votes for yes, 3 votes for no. I've always been a big fan of pro wrestling myself. Grew up watching. I think if you're a kid in the 80s, you kind of had to love it. It was just so ubiquitous that, of course, everybody absolutely loved it. Obviously, big Hulk Hogan fan. But I do hope everybody's doing well. I should have another interview scheduled to be released on Sunday. That is going to be with what's again Roland Prince of the AVDA Arcana Veritas Awards, which I'm honored to be a finalist therein. We're also going to be working on some more social media posts, some more poll questions. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, and then meantime, in Freemasonry, what I've got going on, I've got a couple degrees happening very shortly in November. Got a whole new batch of meetings. The first, actually, be the second week of November, starting November 5th with Border Cities, 6th with Harmony, and 7th with Windsor. So 3 days in a row. Should be really fun, though. And we got the hearts once again. Is that Smokey back or? Welcome back. So your phone is doing okay. What is the did you vote on if you're a fan of professional wrestling, and did you say yes or no? And if you said yes, who's your favorite professional wrestler? All right, so then the question is, who is your favorite pro wrestler? That taco guy. How's it going with you? I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. What is new and what is happening? You're making me hungry for tacos. That is good. Anything exciting coming up for you this week? Anything you're excited about or for? And to everybody just joining us for the first time, welcome. Take a moment to jump in the chat, say hello. Let me know how you're doing. I'm chatting about Freemasonry for the first hour of any stream. I just hang out and kind of answer questions from people. So that's a pretty respectable pick. Stone Cold Steve Austin is one of the greats. Might be like the greatest of all time, depending on who you ask. I think he probably made the most money of any pro wrestler. Working this weekend, yes. Okay, LA Knight is doing an incredible job. So is obviously Chris Jericho. I mean, you could argue Chris Jericho with his work in AEW, he's kind of the GOAT because who else has been, he was, world champion in WWE, world champion in AEW. He was, I think with his stuff with WCW was kind of overlooked because everybody was focused on the NWO, but it was pretty incredible. He had a great career in WCW. A lot of stuff he did was really, really good. He, was over in Japan. He did stuff in Mexico. I mean, to his credit, in terms of, I don't know if anybody, because even Hulk Hogan was super big in AWA and then in WWF and then in WCW. And then um, you could even argue, if you want to consider WWF and WWE in some ways two different companies. I mean, they weren't, but consider one an evolved of the other. It's what? AWA, WCW, WWF, like that's a pretty impressive run. Matt Hardy was at the wrestling show last night. He was backstage. I got to shake his hand. That was really, really cool. Randy Savage, one of the greats. Undertaker, Stone Cold, John Cena, um, The Rock, Dusty Rhodes. You have great, great selection. My favorite wrestler of all time would be John Cena, as of right now, anyways. Welcome, Lon, and thank you for the gifted membership. That is incredibly kind of you. How is it going for you, Lon? Let me know how you're doing. Take a moment to hit that like button and let me know, are you a fan of professional wrestling? And if you are, who is your favorite professional wrestler? Bret Hart, another one of the greats. Ultimate Warrior. I think Ultimate Warrior for a long time was super underrated in terms of his ability to draw, what he did for like he was the first guy in my lifetime growing up loving Hulk Hogan where he was actually like a rival to Hogan. It did show that you could have somebody else come along and be the top guy. And it was fun to watch. He was really, really enjoyable and really fun to watch. He was incredibly talented. So yeah, I mean, I was happy that before he passed away, he managed to get back in with WWE and their good graces, and everybody kind of mended fences. It would have been a shame if he'd passed still having kind of the ill feelings towards WWE and vice versa. Oh yeah, everybody always whenever anybody says Macho Man, immediately what you get is somebody does the Macho Man what's it called? The Macho Man imitation. So that's Mr. Keeps's pick. That was a great promo that he did. Um, That's gotta be Kane. No, I mean, and Glenn Jacobs has had probably, well, I guess I was gonna say no, but there's Jesse Ventura, who's obviously like who had, I guess, more success, but he was a pretty successful political career. I also think he made a ton of money in insurance. I think he was an insurance salesman. The Rogue, I think you mean the Road Warriors, Hawk and Animal. See, I grew up watching WWE, so for me, or WWF, it was always Demolition, right? And everybody always said Demolition was a knockoff of the Road Warriors. Never felt that way to me. I loved Demolition, the team. I thought they were awesome. Nice guy. Mick Foley has done a lot, supposedly, or I shouldn't say supposedly, but done a lot for charitable charities and charitable works to his credit. So I think probably one of the more charitable Masons, one of the more charitable professional wrestlers in terms of his work with all sorts of victims of violence and crime and abuse. Actually, if I type in, I'm curious now. Give a chance to celebrate a good dude helping people. He's a lot younger than I thought. He's 60 years old. I always thought he was a lot older than that, but let's see if I can find his. If I could find his charitable efforts. Jeremy, I'm not sure, Jeremy. Let me know what you think. Here it is. I'm just reading this from Wikipedia. But I've researched some of this stuff as well. Much of Foley's charitable work revolves around children. Among his involvement, Foley has volunteered with Camp Adventure, helping kids cope with cancer, participated in numerous Make-A-Wish Foundation events, made a surprise visit to Children's Hospital, visited schools and libraries to talk to students about the value of education and the importance of reading. Foley sponsors 7 children with Child Fund International, a group he has been affiliated with since 1992. In recent years, he's become one of the fund's leading donors, helping fund childhood education centers in remote areas of the Philippines and Mexico, as well as 4 small community schools in the West African nation of Sierra Leone. After visiting the country in November 2008, an experience he called one of the best experiences of my life, Foley committed to funding a large primary school, which was completed in September 2009, visits U.S. troops, and was involved with RAIN for survivors of sexual assault. All right, so he is. All right, welcome. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Please, if you're just joining us, take a moment to hit the like and subscribe button. We're here to chat about Freemasonry. The first hour, though, I don't have any specific, like, I just wait to see what people want to talk about and answer questions from the chat. Then, the second hour, I have the specific discussion points today, things that we as Freemasons can potentially learn from professional wrestling. But in the meantime, I'm going to take another sip of my coffee, which I definitely need after a very long night. I think a lot of people would give him that GOAT status. I think a lot of people would give him the GOAT status. which would be fair too, um, for everything he put his body through. Jocelyn, how's it going? Good day to you as well. I hope that you're doing well. But Jocelyn, let me know how you're doing. If you've answered the poll question, and are you a fan of Freemasonry? Or sorry, fan of professional wrestling, excuse me. I assume everybody who's here is a fan of Freemasonry, but are you a fan of pro wrestling? Good day to you as well, Jocelyn. How is it going? Yeah, I would be very happy to have no teeth hanging from my lips or my nose. I guess it went like through his nasal cavity. How's it going, Spirit? Thank you for being here. Yes, you told me that. I think you had told me once upon a time who your favorite professional wrestler was, but if you could let me know again, because I cannot remember, I'm sorry to say. Do you, when I talk about what I'm going to talk about, which is Freemasonry and lessons they can learn from pro wrestling, are there any lessons that you, as a Freemason and as a former pro wrestler, anything that you would, like any connections you can see? Oh, good old JR. He was a pretty great wrestler. What do you mean by that, Spirit? What do you mean by heel, babyface, and duality? Do you mean Freemasonry encourages us to be kind of baby faces or promotes our baby face virtues while hopefully mitigating or in some way suppressing our heel vices? Well, I mean, in 2025, certainly in the last several years, since the Attitude Era, you could be both, right? You could be, I think they called like in betweeners or tweeners, where it's like, so for example, Stone Cold Steve Austin was, talked and acted like a heel, but he was cheered like a babyface. Same thing with the NWO, right? They were kind of the first to be the cool heels, which a lot of people don't like, but this idea of you're the bad guys or you talk and act like bad guys, but everybody loves you. That was even Razor Ramon. Hello, Priscilla. I hope you're doing well. Thank you for being here. Well, that is true. Some say both of those things. Some say it promotes the good. Some who are not fans of Freemasonry would say it's heels. Some would say Freemasons are baby faces, and others would call us the heels. I like to think if it's done right, we're baby faces, but I guess everybody has to decide that for themselves. Priscilla, sorry, I'm not sure to what you are referring. Toys play you. Oh, you mean like our video games and stuff? We get way too into them and they end up playing us. There's actually an interesting point you make there, Josh, and I talked about this with gamification. Games, video games, activities are designed in such a way as to keep us playing, to keep us a part of them, right? And that is why they're so addicting, why it's so hard to stop playing. But at a certain point, it can become a problem. Raised eyebrow. Good to see you too. How's it going? I feel like it's been a while since I've seen you. Let me know how you're doing. And Nanya, howdy to you also. By the way, everybody watching this, if you want to take a moment, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, do a 99-cent super chat. But thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Nanya, how's it going? And Raised, were you a fan of pro wrestling? As somebody in New York, I would think that you would be because New York and WWF have a huge connection to each other. Obviously, all of the amazing shows, events, moments that took place at Madison Square Garden, it's pretty incredible. Hulk Hogan, I think, defeated the Iron Sheik in Madison Square Garden. Bruno Sammartino. Bret Hart had a lot of great matches in Madison Square Garden. I don't know, Raised Eyebrow, if you have been on the stream since we got the super chat option, but you can now do a super chat of even just 99 cents. Oh, I mean, you talk about great pro wrestling events happening in different cities. Detroit, famously, that is where Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. I was watching that pay-per-view at a friend's house, and I was very confused as to what happened. Because it just kind of went off the air quickly. It was only later, the next day, I kind of learned more of the backstory of it. So I was watching it on pay-per-view at a friend's house, and we were all confused. No, Detroit's another city that has a ton of connection with. Detroit is a city that has a ton of connections with pro wrestling. It has a ton of connections with pro wrestling. It has a ton of connections with Freemasonry. Sometimes those two combine, such as at the Detroit Masonic Temple. Hello, Ashton. How's it going? Good for you, Raised Eyebrow. Let me know how it goes. Keep us informed, and congratulations. It's going to be a really fun journey. You took your time, which is the right approach to take, because I think you talked about this several months ago. So good for you for taking your time, and I'm sure that it's going to be a great experience for you. I am well, Ashton Porter. How are you doing? And to everybody watching this, thank you for being here. Take a moment to hit the like button. You can subscribe, and you can even do a 99-cent super chat. I investigated. I mean, what I would say for that, Nanya, is it still might be worth contacting them. Because you never know how liberally or not a lodge may define atheist. Or you can look at joining some of the liberal Masonic orders. They're not really exist in Canada, to my knowledge, or U.S., but in Europe. That's nice. Yes, I should have asked you, Spirit. Forgive me for not asking you. Congratulations. I know that your raising was coming up. I'm sure it was very special. Smarties are food. Oh, favorite woman wrestler? I mean, I'm gonna go with like I don't know. There's so many incredible ones. Natalia Neidhart, because Canada, Bret Hart. No, but Spirit, that is incredible. Anything in particular you want to say about it? Good. That's a good feeling. Try to hold on to that. Obviously, sometimes feelings like that can be hard to hold on to long term because eventually it just becomes another thing. But I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I'm glad that it went well for you. How well attended was the raising? That is a good choice. So yeah, Spirit, let me know one thing that you would say that you took away from the third degree. One lesson. Obviously, you can't give specifics about the degree, but just a general lesson that you took from it that kind of has stuck with you. Nice raised eyebrow. That is a great weekend. Did you watch them on AMC or where did you watch them? Ooh, so that's a long night. But did you enjoy getting raised with the other brothers? Did you find that like did it make it more special for you, you think? I love AMC Fear Fest. It's the greatest. AMC Fear Fest in October, there's nothing better. I think that's a good way to put it. I think that's a really good way to look at it. One of the biggest dangers we can have is in Freemasonry is thinking that there's an arbitrary endpoint. So it's like once we make it to the third degree, we're done. Once we make it to the worshipful master's chair, we're done. Once we make it to the past master's chair, we're done. The truth is, being a Mason, it's a lifelong career, it's a lifelong journey, and you have a responsibility to always be trying to improve and grow. Nice, Kevin. So what's been your favorite of the Fear Fests? Like your favorite marathon? Do you like the Freddy Krueger stuff, the Jason stuff, House of Wax, Halloween? Been wearing my mirror in the apron. So that's a sign that you really enjoyed it. And good for you. Freddy's the best. I think I love Nightmare on Elm Street. They're my favorite. I love Nightmare on Elm Street. I really enjoy all of them. Don't get me wrong. I love Friday the 13th. I love Halloween, but for me, Nightmare on Elm Street is the best. And you're on your way to Oh, I love Rob Zombie's Halloween, Kevin. There's a lot of different ways and different experiences that you can have within. You're absolutely right. So good for you, raised eyebrow. Take your time, enjoy it. It'll be fun. Jason is the most I always thought Jason as being like a lot of fun. I mean, I've always said if you've never seen a scary movie or you want to watch a scary movie for the first time and you don't know which one to watch, Friday the 13th Part 6 is the best one. That's the Jason Lives, where he's brought back to life, um, through a lightning bolt. Kevin, I don't know. It's hard to say. Kevin asked the question, why do most people pick Scottish or York Rite for their pendant bodies? I mean, oh, that kind of movies are awesome. You'd have to ask each individual Mason. Like, I feel like it probably shakes out to about 50-50. Um, a lot of it really does come down to the majority in your lodge. If you're in a lodge and the majority are Scottish Rite members, then you're going to join. And that creates like a runaway effect, right? Where there's no particular reason, but, at one point somebody decides to join Scottish Rite in the lodge. He's, let's say, well known or popular with a lot of people. So a couple other people join Scottish Rite. They're popular with people, so a couple more people. And suddenly it seems like there's a Scottish Rite connection to the lodge when in fact the lodge is just they're just going where the majority go, and then the more that go to Scottish Rite, the more that go to Scottish Rite. Yes, I enjoyed Weapons as well. Um, it was a really good year for scary movies. There was him, there was Weapons, there was I Know He Did Last Summer, there was The Long Walk. All right, Priscilla. It's been fun having you. Let's just give you a little bit of a timeout over here. Mr. E, you don't keep secrets, which secrets don't I keep? I'm allowed to talk about being a Freemason. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. And I've been doing it for 4 years and no one's came and tackled me to the ground yet. Um, that's a good question, Nanya. Is it different ways of, well, you could try to tackle me. Is it different ways of teaching a singular lesson? Hmm. I mean, I'm not a York Rite guy, so I'm speaking based on my knowledge of York Rite and my experience with York Rite members, and my knowledge of it just through my general studies. Hello, Magnus. I mean, I would say it's ultimately a singular lesson with different ways of explanation. Because at the end of the day, whether it's Scottish Rite, York Rite, the Shrine, Craft Lodge, whatever it might be, I think ultimately what Freemasonry is all about is fulfilling that social need and social desire for friendship and brotherhood. And doing so, all the lessons in some way relate to this idea or allegory, right? So, but I mean, I don't know because again, I'm not York Rite. I mean, Scottish Rite is focused more, to my knowledge, on certainly and based on my experiences within it, the philosophical principles of Freemasonry. It's often called the University of Freemasonry, whereas certainly York Rite is more focused on historical anecdotes, allegories as it relates to the Knights Templar, military orders. There's a more militaristic feel to it, honoring one's brothers. So you can kind of take that in a couple different ways. I would say, but I'm going to say, um, ultimately Freemasonry in any form, it's a singular lesson being explored from different perspectives and different angles. what you're thinking of, it took me a second, um, Kevin. What you're talking about is Scottish Rite in the southern jurisdiction. I don't actually think that exists in Canada or in the northern jurisdiction, but I'm not positive. But in the south, there is a special hat with leaves for a Mason or for someone who's been a 50-year Scottish Rite member. In Freemasonry, we have pins that you get after 25, 50, and 60 years in most jurisdictions. The lodges can themselves create their own pins if they want. I'm doing well, Hydrogen Investing. How are you doing? How's your channel going? It's good to see you. Well, it's very big. I mean, Scottish Rite, kind of, it's one of the reasons why your friend and mine, Albert Pike, is so popular or so well known. It's because of how big Scottish Rite is in the Southern Masonic jurisdictions. I would say it's certainly bigger than the Northern jurisdictions. I'm doing well, Christopher. How are you doing? Thank you for being here. How is your day going thus far? We're going to give it another. Actually, what I'm going to do is because I've been having a lot of coffee because it's very necessary, I'm going to leave my. I mean, I keep seeing you on social media, so it seems like your goals are growing very well. Um, sorry, it seems like you are growing very well. Because you're popping up on my feed. I just saw you today talking about, I think it was Litecoin. I'm not a huge Pike fan myself, so don't worry about it. I think there's value to what he says, but there's also a lot of gobbledygook. No, black, Magnus. Black coffee is where it's at. All right, I need to run to the washroom. When I'm back, Freemasonry and professional wrestling and the connections therein, or the lessons we can be taught. But for the moment, I'm going to leave this guy with you because I have to go to the washroom for some of that black coffee that I've been enjoying, or to remove some of it. Okay, and I made it back. Steadily growing is good. So, how to investing, just before I start talking about this, I don't know if you're still there or not. Are you a fan of professional wrestling? And if so, do you have a favorite professional wrestler? I was curious to see what you'll say because I don't think I've asked you that before. All right, well, Smokey, make sure you keep your phone hidden. I don't want your phone to be, or your phone sheltered, I should say. I don't want your phone to be damaged by the rain. I'm curious what How to Invest has to say. So, okay. So when I talk about professional wrestling, hold on just 1 second. Freemasonry and professional wrestling. What can the former learn from the latter? Okay, let's pin this. So when I talk about Freemasonry and professional wrestling and what can the former learn from the latter, I'm not talking about this in terms of our Masonic buildings and potential revenue or partnerships with professional wrestling organizations. However, that is something that's worth remembering and celebrating. The Detroit Masonic Temple, for example, just had WWE's NXT promotion within the building. AEW held a Dynamite taping within its theater. I know many Masonic buildings that have public halls and public spaces, and which are renting out to independent promotions for smaller shows. And so I do think it's important to remember that when it comes to sources of revenue, and when it comes to ways to bring the public into our Masonic buildings to celebrate them and to check them out, certainly I don't think we can forget, I don't think we should forget about renting out our space for professional wrestling shows. If you are lucky enough, like at Detroit, I know MLW, like in Detroit, for example, to have a kind of a world-class theater with a world-class production, not just stage, but the lighting, the electronics, the sound system, the crew that can help work a show, right? If you're lucky enough to have that, then you can look at potentially having AEW or having WWE or MLW or like a major promotion, TNA, actually performed at and shot at and recorded at or shown live at your Masonic building. However, even if you're a smaller Masonic building and you have a smaller space that doesn't really have the facilities for a television production, that doesn't mean that you can't open your space up to independent promotions and independent smaller promotions, and just give it a shot, see how it goes. This also is not meant to discuss Freemasons, or sorry, professional wrestlers who have been Freemasons, although there have actually been a few. Probably the biggest professional wrestler, I would say, to have been a Freemason that we know of is Harley Race. Um, he was actually the Tyler of his Masonic Lodge, which talk about the most secured Masonic Lodge in the world. Let me just get the. So, Brother Harley Race was a member of Hickory Hill Lodge number 211 in Eldon, Missouri. He was raised in May of 2000. He served as his lodge Tyler from 2001 to 2008. So, talk about like the most secure Masonic lodge in the world. No one's getting through there. I'd be terrified. According to some people online, although I don't know if this is true or not, Glenn Jacobs, otherwise known as Kane, is not a Freemason. Some people think he is. However, he does attend a lot of Masonic events in the community as a mayor, which I think, the one thing I love about that, and he said this here, I'm just going to pull it up. He said, I think as a society, I think more and more people are starting to question this idea that government can do anything, that it's some sort of magical power to solve all problems, getting into this idea that it has to not, solutions to community problems need to come from community members, community groups, community organizations like Freemasonry. He said that at Charles H. McKinney Masonic Lodge. Again, that doesn't mean he is or was a Mason. What it means is he attended Masonic events within his community within his Masonic community as the mayor. And I think seeing a mayor supporting Masonic events is wonderful. One more professional wrestler who we know is a Freemason is Aaron Stevens, otherwise known as Damian Sandow in WWE. He is, let me see if I can get the he was on Catch the Conspiracy Horseman. He is a Mason out of, if I recall correctly, Missouri, I think. Massachusetts, excuse me. Mason, Massachusetts. And then if you want to add me, I'm a Freemason and I'm a professional wrestling referee and I've done some wrestling stuff as well. So the point is, we're all crushing it as professional wrestlers who are Freemasons. But that's not what this is about either, right? What this discussion is meant to be about is not potential sources of revenue from Masonic or potential sources of publicity from wrestling promotions using our buildings. Detroit, for example. This is not about Freemasons who have been professional wrestlers, such as Harley Race. This is about the lessons that we within Freemasonry can potentially take from professional wrestling. And there's 3 things I want to mention. Actually, these really are specific to Masons themselves on an individual basis and what they can take from pro wrestlers or pro wrestling. But there may be plenty I miss. And if I did, let me know. Or if there are any you can think of, let me know. The first, and I think this is key, is the difference between reciting, or the difference between executing ritual and performing ritual. Or in professional wrestling terms, the difference between executing a move correctly and performing a move correctly is incorrectly and safely. One thing you see very often, if you are, or if you're watching a newer Freemason, one thing you often see is they're so concerned with getting the words of their ritual correct that they end up speaking in this very monotone voice where they don't change their cadence and they don't put any emphasis on any words and they don't take any time to have any dramatic pauses. They simply keep on droning in this monotone fashion until they have completed their ritual. Then they take a breath because they've been holding it and then they go sit down. And the reason for that is obvious. They're new. They want to make sure they got the words correct. And that is kind of their main concern. But that is very similar to what you often see, at least in my experience, through training in professional wrestling, where if you have a newer, when you're new and you're learning how to perform a move correctly, anything from how to lock up, how to do a headlock, how to, anything from a simple move to something involving bumping somebody else, like either a tackle or even a body slam, they'll perform the moves, right? Their focus is on just executing the moves as correctly and safely as possible, which is what it should be at the start, right? Just making sure they're doing things correctly. But everybody looks like they're doing it exactly the same. Everybody looks as though, like everybody does each move exactly the same way as they've been trained. But eventually, if you've been doing it for a while and if you've been trained well, you start to not simply execute moves in a manner that is technically correct, but you start to perform moves in a way that speaks to the character you're trying to portray, that speaks to the story you're trying to tell, that speaks to your opponent and what their strengths and weaknesses are. And you're still executing the moves correctly and safely, but you're now putting a performance into the movements for both the story that you're trying to tell and that particular match, as well as maybe a longer term story that you're trying to tell. Oh, having a theater background in Freemasonry would be huge, right? That would be awesome. Because what you see in, and you may see this in theater, raised eyebrow, what you see in Masonry is those who really get it, as they show up more, as they get more experience, they go from simply executing the ritual, as in getting the words correct, to performing the ritual. Which movie, raised eyebrow? They start to add within the ritual pauses for effect. They start to add inflections. They start to add potentially hand gestures, or they start to add body language differences to it. They may raise the volume of their voice, lower the volume of their voice, depending on the part of the ritual they're at and what they consider to be important or not important. And the beautiful thing about performing is, when you're executing something, it's possible for everybody to execute something in the same way, right? In professional wrestling, for everybody's body slam to look the same. In Freemasonry, for everybody's ritual to sound the same. However, when you switch over to performing the ritual, performing, a Masonic ritual, then it's very different, because then it becomes a personal expression. And the beautiful thing about seeing, I can see two people execute Masonic ritual and it's the same. But when I say two different people or two people performing the Masonic ritual, the beauty of that is No two people will perform it exactly the same. And I'll be able to tell based on how they perform it which parts of the ritual speak to them, which parts of the ritual they find interesting. I can maybe get a hint as to how they're interpreting the ritual and what they consider important about it. And I'll be more just engaged as somebody watching because now they're not simply executing it, but they're actually telling me a story, right? By performing the ritual, they're telling me a story about the ritual or how they feel about the ritual or what they think is important in the ritual. And because I'll never see anybody else perform it the same way, um, I'm forced, or I can't help but be more interested in it. And I'm not just going to let it, let it wash over me. I'm actually going to care and watch it and try to take something from it. And it's going to be a more memorable experience. Anybody, and I mean, I say this, I'm not taking any formal poll questions about this, but anybody who has, remembers a piece of Masonic ritual that they watched, they're not remembering the words, they're not remembering the ritual, they're remembering the way it was delivered and how the manner and way in which it was delivered affected their understanding of the ritual, right? That's what sticks in people's mind. The body slam in wrestling doesn't stick in people's mind. What sticks in people's mind is Hulk Hogan slamming Andre because of the story that was being told. Um, and the way that Hulk Hogan did it and his um, his facial expressions when he did it, the way he sold, how painful it was to pick him up, but how, it's the performance that you remember, not the words, not the execution. And that's true in wrestling, that's true in Freemasonry. So it's incredibly important that we not simply execute our Masonic ritual, but that we perform our Masonic ritual. Um, and there's one way to get to a stage where you're comfortable enough to perform Masonic ritual, and that's the same as in wrestling. There's one way to get to a point where you are comfortable enough to, um, perform your wrestling moves or perform your ritual. It's the same thing. It's practice, 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 and it's showing up, showing up, showing up. You need to be willing to practice your ritual all the time, because by practicing your ritual and getting the words down, you're then going to start to incorporate within it what it means to you, right? To perform it, it has to say something to you. It has to mean something to you. And the one way you can get it to mean something to you is you have to read it over and over and over again. You have to practice it over and over and over again. And in doing so, things will stick out to you. Things will start to stick in your mind where you'll think to yourself, hey, maybe I want to say this sentence a little bit louder, because when I'm reading it, that sentence really sticks out to me. Maybe at this section is a good time to look directly at the candidate to emphasize this particular line. And maybe after that, I take a moment and look a little bit away so he recognizes, oh, he was looking at me really intently with this one line. I need to pay attention to that. Or if this is important to him. So you have to practice. You have to practice over and over and over again. You have to become comfortable with the words and with the ritual before you can start to perform it. The other thing you have to do is you have to be willing to visit and watch ritual as often as you can. And that's true for pro wrestling as well, right? It's not just about you performing it or you getting comfortable with doing the moves yourself. You need to watch how other people execute or perform the moves. And again, that's not to say that you'll steal from them, although you may, and there's nothing wrong with that in Freemasonry. right? If you really love the way a certain brother performs his Masonic ritual, there's nothing wrong with trying to take that and bring that back into your own lodge. You have to just be watching and paying attention. But, just as in pro wrestling, newer guys, from what I understand, will be expected to be at the monitor to watch the matches, to watch every match, to pay attention to every match, to see what the other wrestlers are doing, especially what the veterans are doing. In the same way, um, I think when it comes to Freemasonry, you need to, because you can't do it on television as much as people may want, you need to be willing to travel, um, show up, and watch other people performing ritual. Um, and keep in mind, like, what did I see here that I want to incorporate into my Masonic ritual? What do I see here that made me think of the ritual in a different way? What did I see that made me reconsider how I'm performing the ritual? Um, and that's also why I always suggest to people that it's important that we keep Masonic journals. And that's something that you can write down after the meeting, right? You go to a Masonic meeting, um, you see ritual performed, you think it's really cool. There's something about it you really liked, some way he emphasized a certain word or some type of mannerism he incorporated into the performance or whatever it might be. When you get home, take a moment, write down in your Masonic journal the date, the name of the lodge you attended, what the degree was, and what stood out to you about it, and what made it memorable for you. And by the way, within pro wrestling, one thing that a lot of people encourage as well is keeping a journal of your of your pro wrestling dates, of your pro wrestling shows, maybe your payouts, finishes, things that went well, things that could go better. It's good to keep a journal of the things you love, whether it's pro wrestling or whether it's masonry, and um, a lot of pro wrestlers keep their journals. Some have even published it, like Chris Jericho had Chris Jericho had a pro wrestling journal, recorded every match he took part in, recorded, all the finishes, anything he remembered from those shows, and he actually published it. So the importance of keeping a journal of your travels and what it is that kind of stood out to you. The attentive ear and the instructive tongue. So Castro, welcome. Sorry I missed you. I just wanted to make sure I kept talking about kind of my subject. But Castro, thank you for being here. Is Masonry's rules the same for each degree? I'm not sure what you mean by that, Castro. Like, the degrees are different. Um, a first degree, a second degree, a third degree, those are all different. If you're asking, like, but the rules, I mean, whether you're an entered apprentice or a master mason, you are always going to be subject to the rules of the Constitution and the bylaws of your jurisdiction. So, like, that's not different. So I'm not quite sure what is meant by that. I'm sorry. Um, but, the bylaws of your lodge and the Constitution of your lodge, the Constitution of the Grand Lodge to which you belong, those are not, those apply to every Mason, whether you're a fellow craft, entered apprentice, master Mason, officer, whatever it might be. And can you start your own Masonic lodge? Well, I mean, you can do whatever you want, right? You can put a sign in your on your front door that says Castro's Masonic Lodge, come join. However, the issue is it's not going to be recognized by your grand jurisdiction. And if it's not recognized, what that means is I would not be, as a Mason, I could not visit your lodge. And anybody who you, quote unquote, made a Mason in your Masonic lodge no one else could visit. They couldn't visit anywhere else. So it's a bit like you're trapped on an island, um, if that makes sense. And welcome, Castro. Take a minute to jump in the chat, say hello. Let me know how you're doing, and if there's anything that you want to talk about. I'm talking about lessons Freemasons can take from pro wrestling. The first two, that I've already talked about. Don't just, actually, the first three, excuse me. Don't simply execute your ritual. Perform your Masonic ritual is lesson number one. Lesson number two, the exclusive way to get to a point where you can perform Masonic ritual is by regular practice and watching others perform the ritual. And the third lesson is it's very important to keep a journal of your experiences within Freemasonry, specifically so you can keep a journal of anything that happened during a degree that you want to bring with you, or for your own kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Your own, not enjoyment, but your own perspective. But I can't tell you how many times, even me, even though I have journals, I've been at a Masonic meeting, I've seen something that sticks out to me, I think, or I want to record. I don't fill in my journal that night. I wait a couple of days, and suddenly I'm sitting there trying to remember, what was that thing I saw? What was that thing that stood out to me? Even when it came to all these, like, I have a journal. One thing I didn't record is where I received my pins and coins and stuff. I would love to have a record of from whence each one of these came. So, yeah. So there is those three lessons. The fourth lesson, which I also think is just as important as the others, is the importance of breath. And I kind of touched on this a little bit in the previous lessons. What you see very often when it comes to brethren, whether they're executing ritual or trying to get to a point where they feel as though they can perform it, what you very often see is brethren will be talking again in this very monotone voice, and then suddenly they will have to take a big breath. By the way, JR, welcome. Thanks for being here. I hope you consider doing a super chat of even 99 cents. Right, they'll consider doing one of those. They'll do a breath like that because they've been holding their breath while they've been performing the ritual. And one of the crazy things about Freemasonry, people don't realize this, is especially if you're nervous as a public speaker, how easy it can be to, when you're nervous, to hold your breath. Either if you're performing ritual, if you're doing an opening or closing, or even if you're getting your degree. Like if you're a candidate and you're getting a first degree, if you're excited, if it means a lot to you, if it's a big deal to you, to your family, to whatever it is, it can be very easy to start to hold your breath. And I did once see a brother, nothing particular was even, or he was a candidate at the time, nothing was even happening in the degree. He just fainted. And the reason is there's a combination of things. But he was so excited to join Freemasonry, combined with so nervous, that he just forgot to breathe, basically. And he fainted. And then obviously there's the metaphysical qualities of Freemasonry being important to one's life, and breathing being important to one's life, breathing being maybe the most fundamental building stone or block of life, if you will. All of that stuff, breath is a part of. So being aware of your breath, caring about your breath, that stuff is critical. And the same is true in professional wrestling, right? All the guys who can go for, you know, I mean, doing a 2 minute match is going to exhaust you. It's going to absolutely exhaust you. But, you start to get to 10-minute matches, 15-minute matches, 20-minute matches, 30-minute matches. Um, if you don't have the ability to breathe while you're working, if you don't have the ability to maintain a steady breath, you're not going to be able to go the entire length of the match. And so one thing in Freemasonry is in professional wrestling, they teach you how to breathe. I remember one of my coaches, whenever we were training and we'd get to this point where um, we were getting tired, our breath was getting ragged, we weren't able to keep going, he would always yell at us because he was a very scary coach. But he would yell, "Breathe on purpose." And that is something I was thinking of getting that in a tattoo actually at some point. But breathing on purpose, and sometimes that is as simple as being aware of your breath, feeling your breath. And I think whether it's professional wrestling or Freemasonry, we need to make sure we don't allow our nerves to get us to a point where we feel like we can no longer breathe, or we forget to breathe, I should say. Some ways that have really helped me with that, outside of the professional wrestling training and having a coach telling you to breathe on purpose, yoga was incredibly helpful with that. One reason I'm always recommending to brothers and to Masonic lodges is consider doing some type of special yoga day. Bring your brothers out to a park and have a yoga studio. Perform, yoga with them. You can even do it for those who are older in a chair. So you have seated yoga or meditation, right? Again, you can do a guided meditation. Bring somebody into your Masonic lodge. You can go to Refreshment to Labor and spend 5 minutes doing a breathing exercise. You can do box breathing. You can do, that's my favorite, right? 4 seconds in. We'll do it together right now just for fun, right? So what you do is you breathe in for 4 seconds. 4, you hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. You exhale for 4 seconds. 2, 3, 4. You hold for 4 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4. In for 4 seconds, and etc. You hold for 4. So it's about, and they can be 2 seconds. It can be 1, it can be 3 seconds. But if you are forcing yourself to be aware of your breath, then it's going to create better ritual, because you're not going to pause to, in the middle of it, take a giant breath. Like I said, I saw the one gentleman faint. And he said, he was just so excited. I guess it was a family thing. And he'd always wanted to join. He was joining a little bit older because he had work commitments as a younger man. But he fainted. But I've also seen a lot of, again, the example I gave, a brother reciting a piece of ritual, and he starts talking and he's reciting the piece of ritual and it's going okay, and he starts to go faster and he starts to go faster, and suddenly he goes and then he keeps going, and you see that pause in the breathing, or needing to take a breath. So be aware of your breathing. Practice breathing techniques, practice mindfulness techniques, practice yoga, exercise if you can. In the pro wrestling world, you might have a coach yelling at you to keep your breath, but you don't have that in Freemasonry. But that doesn't mean it's not incredibly important to maintain your breath. So that's The fourth lesson, lessons so far: don't execute ritual, perform ritual. You learn how to perform ritual through repetition and watching others do it. Keep a journal to keep up to date and keep learning about what you're doing. To keep a record of what you've done, what you're doing, and things you want to take from those experiences and bring them to your lodge. And number four, be aware of your breath. Practice breathing techniques. Don't allow a lack of breath to impact your ability to perform ritual or engage with your brothers. And don't pretend like being a Mason can't at times create nerves or nerve wrackingness, or develop nerves. Because if you love Freemasonry and you want to do well, there's a natural tendency to be nervous in those situations. Um, the fifth lesson, and I think it's important as well. I think all these are important, I should say. But the fifth lesson, so as maybe many of us have seen, if you are regular attendants or regular attendants of my live streams, we have very often people jumping on stream asking if I can share with them the secret handshake. Now, I'm not going to tell you whether there is or is not a secret handshake. You have to join Freemasonry. But there is a really interesting story about shaking hands that Cody Rhodes talked about on his podcast, and I think it's worth sharing here because there's a Masonic idea to it as well, as my dad talked about. And spirit, that's a great point as well. You may develop nerves performing ritual because you're performing ritual in a language that's not your native tongue, which is why it's so important to be aware of your breath. And also, you may be nervous about performing ritual and trying so hard to simply execute ritual because it's a second language. And because it's a second language, it can be very nerve-wracking trying to get it right, either from just the words correct or the pronunciation correct. So I can imagine it's very fulfilling. So yeah, going back to shaking hands. So Cody Rhodes was talking about his trainer, Al Snow. And Al Snow asked Cody Rhodes, he said, okay, why is it that you think in professional wrestling we shake everybody's hands? Because in professional wrestling, it's a huge deal to, shake people's hands. The reason that he gave is because within professional wrestling, we need each other, right? Is what he said. The worker's handshake, right? He said, it's not just as a sign of respect, that's part of it. It's a sign of the recognition that we need each other, right? I need you and you need me. And that's true for the referees as well. That's true for everybody. Like, I need to trust you that if you're going to pick me up and drop me, you're not going to pick me up and drop me on my head, because I need to be able to work the next day. Or fist bumping, there you go. I just saw Rhino yesterday. I need to trust and know that you're not going to drop me on my head, because I need to work not just today, but I need to work tomorrow and the next day and the next day to put food on the table for my family. So I'm trusting you with my body. I'm trusting you with, my health, my life in some ways. I also need you to just make money. I don't care how popular of a star you are. The marquee, the program, it doesn't say Hulk Hogan versus nobody, right? It's Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant. It's Hulk Hogan versus Macho Man. It's Hulk Hogan versus whomever. You can't, you need to have matches. You need to have opponents. You need to have people you're working with. You need to have a referee. So in order to make money, you need to um, you need the person across from you, and they're making sure they're putting money again on your table. Sorry, putting money in your bank so you can put food on your table for you and your family. So the handshake is beyond simply a sign of respect. It's a sign of saying, because I need you, I'm showing you that respect. I'm going to show you my trust in you. Um, because I need you to make money, need you to protect me, I'm shaking your hand. Um, and you could argue in Freemasonry, and my dad brought this up as well, we do need each other. We do need to have trust in each other. If I'm performing a degree, I need to have trust that you'll be there. I need to have trust that you're going to show up for me for that degree. If, if I'm trying to organize something, if I need to have quorum, if I need to have 7 people in a Masonic lodge to hold a meeting, I need to have trust that you'll be there. Um, I need to trust that my brothers will show up. So whether or not we in Freemasonry have handshakes or not, I think another lesson we can take is the handshake is not simply a, or is not simply a mode of recognition. It's a bond demonstrating trust, or it's a contract of trust between true brethren. Well, it is. I mean, in the sense of like, how do you test for that, right? I mean, you get to know the brother, you learn what he's like. Maybe you can perform a criminal record check to see if there's any examples of like fraud or anything like that in the history. Who knows? But generally speaking, trustworthiness is something you kind of have to judge. Each Mason has to judge for himself when it comes to a new member. It's not the same thing as like, are you over the age of 18 or over the age of 21? That's a simple yes or no. Trustworthiness is not really something you can put as a requirement. It's more something that you have to feel out for yourself. But certainly there is one rule that kind of, I would suggest, if a Masonic lodge feels a brother is not trustworthy, then, or feels a person, applicant, is not trustworthy, then it's going to be much more, he's less likely to get in. But that's a decision that's a subjective measurement. But maybe the handshake hopefully helps people, what's the word I'd say? Hopefully the handshake reminds people, if there is a handshake, it speaks to people's hearts that this is a bond of trustworthiness and mutual respect, and a recognition that on some level, for this lodge to be successful, it cannot be done on our own. We need to do it together. We need to work together. Castro, I hope so. And Yumi, welcome. Thanks for being here. I would hope Freemasonry, the membership therein, is compassionate. In my experience, the best Masons are compassionate. We may or may not have a grip, but if we do, then I hope that Masons take it not simply as a mode of recognition, but as a sacred bond of trust and of a way to acknowledge and communicate that we need one another. That's a Mitch Hedberg joke, Castro. I used to know this. I think, if I recall correctly, so it's called a wrestling ring. A ring is a circle. But the wrestling ring is square. So it's a squared circle in the sense that it's a ring, which is circular, but it's squared. I could be wrong. I could very well be wrong, but that's my theory. Sorry, what's the shower thought, Yumi? I must have missed that. Well, I'm over here. By the way, everybody watching this, don't forget you can take a few moments to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and you can do a super chat. Even 99 cents would be incredibly helpful. And the more people we have doing super chats, the more people find the stream. So just 99 cents is, all you need. So what are the lessons so far from pro wrestling that can be applied to Freemasonry? Don't simply execute ritual, perform ritual. You learn to perform ritual by practice, 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 combined with watching others do it and noticing things. What you notice should be included within a Masonic journal. Be aware of your breath, practice your breath, be attentive to your breath, and remember that to shake hands is to give a bond or a contract of trust and respect because we in Freemasonry need each other. Um, there you go. Spirit is in the gym. Good. I mean, that's another thing to keep in mind. And yes, Yumi, I agree with you as well. Being a Freemason, one of the most important things being a professional wrestler, one of the most important things is health. You need to be healthy, you need to be physically fit, you need to have good cardio, you need to have all that stuff to be a success. I think to be a Freemason, health matters also. You need to be healthy, you need to care for your health. The healthier you are, the more likely you are to be successful within Freemasonry as well as in life. So that's another lesson we can take. And then I think whether it's, the other lesson, the last lesson I'll give before we end this stream. It's been a blast. Um, the importance of being willing to change with the times, embracing new technology, embracing new ideas, embracing new modes of communication, or community. Like you think about professional wrestling. I mean, um, you could argue it's for forerunners was, ancient wrestling in Greece and Rome. So you're talking thousands of years ago. Um, Undertaker's good. He's not my favorite. It's ancient. It's ancient Greece. It's the wrestling of ancient Greece. However, really, you could say professional wrestling came into its own with the advent of television. Um, think about since the 1950s with the advent of television, and professional wrestling was actually one of the first things shown on television. Interesting side note. How much has changed? How much the business models of professional wrestling has changed. Their embracing of streaming, their embracing of content, pay-per-views, shows on the internet. Um, First having such an emphasis on kayfabe, only to then kind of move aside. Now you have shows like LFG. You have all sorts of shows talking to professional wrestlers out of their character, out of their gimmick. Um, how many different types of technology did Vince McMahon and WWE embrace? There was radio. They would, they would have radio broadcasts talking about professional wrestling shows. Then they move on to television. Then they move on to pay-per-view. In the meantime, they develop a social media presence. They develop first they develop an internet presence. Then they develop a social media presence, right? If you go back 30, 40 years, how many wrestlers, it doesn't exist, right? There's no professional wrestling on any social media because it doesn't exist. There's no Twitter, there's no YouTube, there's no um, email blast, there's no Facebook. And now think about in the last 15 years, how many professional wrestlers have used social media to cultivate a cult following, to cultivate fans, to cultivate money, to create a career. It's been absolutely incredible, right? With Freemasonry, it's the exact same thing. If we are not willing to recognize the way that things are changing, to recognize how things are changing, and to be willing to change with those times, to embrace social media, to embrace technology, to embrace new ways to think about Freemasonry, right? For years and years, the idea, decades, the idea of breaking kayfabe, um, to actually admit that what's being done is scripted, to actually admit that what's being done is choreographed, that would have been like you would get thrown out of territories, you would get thrown out of companies for doing that. But even when Vince McMahon, maybe the single most important moment in the history of professional wrestling was Vince McMahon admitting to the sports commissions that wrestling was predetermined and not a sport in the way boxing is, where the outcome is at least supposed to be not predetermined. Look at what it led to. Look at where we are in professional wrestling. All the WrestleManias, all the moments, the hundreds, the millions of fans who've attended events, the Make-A-Wish stuff, the charitable efforts, the fact that professional wrestlers are mainstream superstars, right? That's all on the back of embracing the changing times, embracing new ways to think about the sport, the the entertainment, the business, call it what you want, of professional wrestling. And in Freemasonry, it's exactly the same. How many opportunities are we missing because we're not willing to reevaluate things? We're not willing to change with the times. Or we change too late. Sometimes being too late is no different than not changing at all. Yes, you did, Rondo, but you didn't have. I mean, I don't even know if there's any social media 30 years ago. 30 years ago would have been 1995. There may have been like early versions of it, but again, if let's say professional wrestlers refused to embrace social media, a lot of them wouldn't have careers. Um, a lot of them, I mean, Matt Cardona talks about this all the time. Like, his social media presence is vital for his business, which is himself, right? And his ability to make money for himself and his family, and the people around him. So I guess with that, those would be my lessons. And sure, invading territories, though let's not have any literal or figurative Masonic invasions. But who knows? Maybe again, that's an example of me not thinking outside the box or being willing to embrace new ideas. So, with that, the six lessons, I think it was. Don't execute ritual, perform ritual. You learn to perform ritual by visiting and paying attention to other people's work while also practicing your own work. And it's not enough to pay attention to other people's work. You need to record what you've seen, write it down, keep a journal. Pay attention to your breath, how you are breathing. Learn to breathe while performing ritual. Take yoga, take breathing exercises. Your breath is absolutely critical if you want to have success when it comes to performing things. Be willing to change with the times. Be willing to consider new ideas. Don't allow your brand, your business, or your fraternal organization or your civic group to grow stale. The handshake if there are any, or whatever you want to call it, is not simply a mode of recognition. Rather, it is an acknowledgement of the bond shared between brothers and an acknowledgement of the necessity that each of us has to be there for the other in order to make Freemasonry a success. And I think that's it. And then obviously, these aren't lessons, but do not forget about the opportunities that our buildings may have to host wrestling events, either large scale productions or smaller independents. And do not forget about those brothers in Freemasonry who also were who are also professional wrestlers. Damien Sandow, Harley Race, King Cobra, a Southern wrestler, to name just a few. Or those wrestlers who support Freemasonry, like Glenn Jacobs, who I don't believe is a Freemason, but has attended events in Masonic lodges. Yes, that's pretty funny, Rondo. That's a good play on words. I think we need to be able to think outside the cube. Freemasons are allowed to make changes. Obviously, if that wasn't the case, I would not be able to send my summons via email, which I do. So it's just being able to embrace those things and work with them. With that, thank you so much to everybody who has been here. This is a shorter 2-hour stream. I will be back on at 1 a.m., but thank you so much for that. As always, it's not too late to do a super chat to become a member. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll talk to everybody soon. And Spirit, once again, congratulations. We're all proud of you. You should be proud of you. Keep up the great work. Super Dab. I mean, I'm a wrestling referee. I don't know. Everybody can think of that. Give me a name. What should my professional wrestling persona name be? Let me know. All right, guys. Thank you so much.